Leesville Road, Active Adult Community.
This is a very, very difficult project. It is a very extensive project. It's a very expensive project. And yes, we would love to have all the answers ironed out today. And we intend to continue to knock off some of these questions as we continue to progress. So this is not an easy project.
Here are our concerns. Infrastructure. The Leesville Road Active Adult Community has been considering two areas from which to receive sewer. In an email from Horvath Associates dated July 15, 2011, the engineer states that sewer service will come from Raleigh or Durham. The City of Raleigh was never a realistic option for this project. Besides for not having enough capacity, the Service Area Boundary Agreement does not cover this area of Durham. In an email dated July 28, 2011, Durham's Deputy City Manager notes that Mr. Horvath knew Raleigh would not service the area back in March of 2011. Why would Horvath Associates continue saying Raleigh was still an option almost 5 months later when they knew it wasn't? The developers will have to get sewer from the City of Durham. They will have to pay to run lines for 2.7 miles. How much will that cost, and is it feasible?
We don't even have plans to bid out. So we aren't far enough along to actually have an estimate that anyone would quote that would have any credibility.
We do wonder why they are rushing this rezoning through when they don't even know what the utilities will cost.
There's a ton of risk as seen by the current housing market.
There are other alternatives to municipal sewer services that are much more environmentally friendly. Age restrictions. One of the selling points of this development is that it is an active adult community and there are age restrictions.
How legal is that, or how legally binding is that throughout the life of this entire project?
Having developed Del Webb communities all over the country, some municipalities have a zoning classification that is age restricted, and in that case we can just ask to rezone to age restricted, and that runs with the property. Durham does not have that.
So there are federal guidelines they have to comply with, and as part of our rezoning, we're committing to the city that will abide by those federal and state guidelines that as part of the Fair Housing Act. So we have to abide by those, and that generally says that the majority of the homes, people over 55 have to occupy the unit, and there's a certain lower threshold. There can't be a resident less than, I think, 19 years old.
Okay. If you want to read it yourself and become the expert, all the power to you. We do not profess to be the experts in this room.
So we did. Here is a link to the federal regulations on 55 or older communities from HUD. Take a look at the state and federal guidelines and notice there is no 19-year-old age limitation. The staff report also does not have a 19-year-old age limit.
260 units could then be school-aged children and
it's possible. The occupants would be, both occupants would be under 55 or whatever family lived there. And yes, theoretically, there could be some school-aged children, which is taken into account on the school numbers that 20% had school-aged children there. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's already calculated.
That's in the staff report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can the HOA enforce age restrictions?
Is it perfect? No. There's no way when you have up to over 1,300 homes that we can guarantee 100% satisfaction of that committed element. But I think the mechanism we put in place, which requires yearly reporting by the HOA and a annual census and evaluation by the HOA of each unit and verification of the age of the occupants, is something that we can enforce.
HOAs can change. The developer controls the HOA until a certain amount of properties are sold. Then they turn over control. The new board can change restrictions. This might be an issue if the market doesn't pick up and they just need to sell houses in the community. The self-imposed 19 age limit could change if there is trouble selling property.
I'm 55 plus, but I have a 17-year-old grandson that lives with me. How are you going to stop that? You're not. You only got to have one person in this apartment or in these dwellings that's 55. One person is what the staff report says. The other person can be 18, 19, 20. I think you said 19. But I don't think, I mean, who's going out there and check 1,300 and some houses? Yeah, there you go, the children police. I don't believe you're going to be able to enforce that. Why would somebody 55 years and older who is at retirement age want to move in a place like this, knowing when he gets there, 200 some houses is going to have kids in them running all around the neighborhood? You don't know who's going to flip this. You guys are asking us to be very flexible tonight and letting you say it might be, it could be. Well, I don't know. I'm not willing to go there, particularly on this thing where you say these folks are going to be 55 years and older.
In theory, an active adult community would be fine for this community, but we would like to make sure it is part of the zoning condition, which Durham currently doesn't have. Traffic. The engineer indicates that the traffic impacts will be reduced due to the age restrictions. Most people are still working at age 55. We don't see how adding several thousand people won't have a significant increase in traffic. This is not the first time a traffic study associated with a Horvath project has been questionable. For example, regarding Brightleaf Commons,
the 109.9 to meet a threshold of 110 is really bothersome. I'm not quite sure how you got there or what happened there, but it's a little bit bothersome to me. It's not like cooking the books, it is cooking the books.
Durham might want to consider adding 20% to the threshold to account for any margin of error from their traffic study. Timbering and buffers. Part of this property was illegally logged because they didn't maintain buffers. We asked Tim Sivers of Horvath & Associates if they knew about the logging. Here's his reply on May 5, 2011. I became aware of this timbering on Sunday, April 17th when I drove by the site with my wife. Later at the Planning Commission on May 10th, 2011,
the earliest we saw it was April 17th when one of our Tim Sivers in my office happened to drive by it. Unfortunately, we didn't know about it. My client didn't know about it.
Horvath & Associates knew about the logging months prior to the Planning Commissioner meeting. They knew about it and let the logging continue for several months, only admitting they recently found out about it after our email in early May. An adjacent landowner sent Horvath Associates an email about the logging on November 11, 2010. I have a question, the logging that is going on the Ross property behind Adventure Trail this week. Here is his response. Also November 11, 2010. We are not involved with that in any manner.
This looks awfully suspicious, and I'll leave it at that. All right. Starting from the timber and coming back up to the fella that just realized it's going to be a road coming through his living room, on top of a lot of unanswered questions. And I think what you essentially asking for is a blank check, because as you stated, the time isn't of the essence here. So but my concern is once we issue, if we were to issue a blank check and it was to get approved, a lot of things can happen that would not be to the best of this community.
This is a large property, and we were told at the last neighborhood meeting that the 369 acres is going to grow by an estimated 40%. The developers already have contracts with more landowners. Sediment and stormwater.
Yes, the soils out there are impermeable. Water hits them and it runs off today with no development. 5 inches of rain or 4 inches or even 3 and 2.5 will discolor the streams. You are going to get it. And it's a natural characteristic of the Triassic Basin.
Even less than 1/2 inch of rain can cause major amounts of sediment to flow into the stream. More impervious surface means more stormwater. The impervious surface for this development is 45%.
Crabtree isn't in any position to accept any more water. So I understand you can't divert it, but I think with the amount of impervious surfaces and the amount of water that this is going to create, it's going to cause an issue for someone else down the road.
Keeping water on the property is a proven way of managing stormwater. There are many municipalities in Virginia and Maryland that have adopted low-impact development practices.
Now, can we design a system, a low-impact development, that reduces runoff compared to conventional? Absolutely. When you actually build the two developments, Big Pond versus LID site, the developer may well be able to make more money on the sales of the homes associated with the low-impact development rather than the conventional.
Please understand our concerns with this development. We feel that it is being rushed through. They could provide a much better development plan that works with the needs of the community and at the same time considers the environmental concerns with soils and stormwater. Please encourage the applicant to withdraw the case and reapply when they have a more complete plan. Thank you.